I spent the early part of my career as a Windows software developer. And probably for the span of about 4 or 5 years, I wrote various test systems and automated test systems in various programming languages. And the model that we used to follow was, what do you want? Yeah, okay, I'll see if I can do that. Probably not the most formal of development models that are out there, and certainly nowhere near anything like what we'll talk about here with Agile development models. What is Agile development? Well, it's a software development or set of software development models that contain phases or iterations. And you might iterate through a planning phase, requirement analysis, designing, building, and testing. Agile models are really focused around how do we quickly deliver a working product to somebody? How do we quickly design features? How do we quickly get a prototype out there? Agile development really aims for customer satisfaction, whereas opposed to other models might focus on meeting specific requirements or sticking to the requirements model that you have defined. There are several methods like Scrum, DSDM, Crystal that we'll talk about in this section. So the first one is the Scrum Development method. If you've heard terms like product owner, Scrum Master, or team, we're not talking about rugby here. We're probably talking about a development model. It's very iterative, it's very incremental, and it's about providing an actual product based on the schedule that's allowed. So with the Scrum model, you say, I've got X number of days, weeks, months to do something. All right, I look at my requirements, I look at what I can do reasonably given my staff and ability in that time frame, and I say, okay, this is going to be the scope of the project. So the team may look at that and say, all right, this is what we reasonably think we can do based on the time we have. And that you iterate through that over several passes, and at the end you get a product out at the some type of software product out at the end. The Dynamic Systems Development Model, DSDM, this requires that a project be aligned with the strategic goals for governance and organization. It's got 7 phases as opposed to Scrum's 5 or so, where you're going through feasibility studies, business case studies, functional model iterations, designing and building iterations, actual implementation of it, and then post-projects. If you see topics or concepts like facilitated workshops or time boxing, you know you're in a DSDM model. And what it does, if you look at the diagram here, traditional software development says that we strive for fixed functionality. We want the software to do X, Y, Z, and it doesn't matter what the time is or what the resources are, achieve that level of functionality. That's what we want. DSDM flips that upside down and says, okay, time and resources are now fixed. Let's make the variable the variable in this process, let's make that functionality. So given our time and resources, what can we actually accomplish? And in that sense, it's similar to the Scrum method. Extreme programming is about very rapid iterations of pushing as many features or meeting as many customer requirements as possible by providing frequent releases. We basically, in extreme programming, focus on what we can do by the due date and then separating out what we can do after the due date. And based on that, what we end up with is typically very focused iterations on, I've got 1 week, what can I possibly get done? So it's almost this hectic development model here. But what you end up with here is really the con of this method is that producing quality code while your requirements are shifting. Because you're in that, I've got 1 week to do this and I just found out about a new feature, How quickly can I get this feature implemented? All right, great, we're done with that iteration. Now we're on to the next one. Oh, the customer wants something else. Well, it kind of conflicts with what we did last week, but I got to make it work, so we'll figure it out and we'll make it work. Now, what that results in is a situation where you might not be focusing on high quality code, you're focusing on getting the job done, which at the end of the day, maybe that's a valid trade-off for you. Maybe you don't care what the code looks like as long as it works. And there is something to be said about that. With feature-driven development, this is focused, kind of like extreme programming is, around delivering features to clients. There's a 5-step model here that you can go through with what does the overall model look like, what is the feature list that we want to have, how are we going to build these features, or what is the plan for them, how are we going to design them, and then we actually build it. Some of these projects might take longer than the other methods that we've talked about if you're using feature-driven development, but at the end of the day, you're focused on, I've got a set of features that I need to deliver by a certain due date, and that's what I'm going to focus on. The last one we'll talk about here is crystal clear. This is a kind of different from the previous models that we talked about because this model uses the strengths and weaknesses of the personnel doing the development. So it says, all right, well, I will take a project on. I'm going to look at where my strengths and weaknesses are from a development shop standpoint, and then I'm going to focus on delivering what I know my people can do. And so as you change requirements in this, it may not be easily absorbed into the development shop. It may be harder to meet those special requests or those feature changes. And this is really well suited to small, quick projects where you know the functional requirements aren't going to change all that often or aren't going to change all that much. And therefore, you can take person X, Y, Z from your development shop and put them on it because it's a very discrete project. Lastly, here is an example. We'll take a look at widget building. Well, if our requirement is to take a original widget and we want to make it faster, smaller, and more powerful than the original, well, now I've got 3 requirements in there that I can use. So I'll build a functional team of experts based on those 3 things that I want to accomplish. They all understand widgets. They may have worked on the original one. And so based on that, we assemble the team and we decide, okay, we're going to take 3 iterations, one for making it faster, one for making it smaller, and another iteration for making it more powerful. And so with iteration 1, we're not looking at how do I eat the whole elephant at once. I'm going to look at how do I eat just a small portion of it to get us through iteration 1. Once I'm there, great, we'll deliver that. Now we're on to iteration 2. I'll take another bite of the elephant and say, all right, how do I make it smaller? I made it faster in the previous iteration. Now I'm trying to make it smaller. Then at the end, I'm taking another bite out of the elephant and deciding how to make it more powerful. At the end, I've eaten the elephant, as it were, and I've said, okay, I've made it through all of these iterations. They were small bites through this whole process, but at the end, I've accomplished my goal of making a faster, smaller, and more powerful widget than the original. And that's where these Agile development models can come in handy.